Good afternoon. We will be getting started in just a moment. Welcome to our Family Talk, Student Disability Services Q&A. Hopefully it looks like we are recording correctly in all of our platforms. Hooray. A plus to me. Oh, nope, hold on. We just need to go live. So now we will be, because I always forget to press a button. We will be live momentarily on the Facebook, and we have started also our live webinar. So we are so excited for folks who are with us today, and we'll start just momentarily. Wonderful. If you're just joining us, we are getting started on our Family Talk Student Disability Services Q&A in just the next moment or so. We know some folks are going to join us on our live webinar and also potentially kind of watch this on and off through the live stream we have and the on-demand option through being on the Facebook group. Fantastic. Well, it is time. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Kim Kushner. I serve as our Assistant Director of New Student and Family Programs and in our Office of Student Involvement, or OSI, which is within our Division of Student Affairs. In my role, I oversee, have my email open, sorry friends. In my role, I oversee our UMKC Parent and Family Programs Office, which is very, very exciting because then I get to talk to really cool people like Scott, who you'll meet momentarily, who do amazing things on our campus to serve our students, but to also keep you all abreast of what's going on and to serve as critical partners to our families. And Scott is here today to talk about student disability services and to answer any questions we may have around student disability services, as well as his office and his fellow offices that are kind of all in a little area, not too far from my office. Actually, I can throw a little stone that way. But we are so excited. This is our one of several within our Family Talk series. And at the end of the presentation, at the end of our time together, I'll remind folks where all of those are located, but they are on our parent and family website. So Scott, feel free to take it away if you want to introduce yourself, what you do, and we'll get started for our parents, families, and supporters who are with us again, either via the webinar format or via the Facebook live video.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. My name is Scott Laurent. I am the Director of Student Disability Services here at UMKC. I've been the director for 24 years now, going on 25. And I wanted the opportunity to talk with you about our services and, how you might be able to encourage your son or daughter, your student to take advantage of our services and use them. So let's go ahead and get started. So why disability services? Well, we provide free, confidential academic accommodations for any student that has a documented disability. So if they had a 504 plan in high school, if they had an IEP, or if they've acquired a disability since then, those would be the students that we would serve. Now, disabilities are a very kind of broad definition. We often think about disabilities in terms of people with visual impairments or wheelchair users or who are deaf. But other things would qualify as a disability, such as an anxiety disorder, depression, chronic health issues, migraines. So there's a very broad definition under the Americans with Disabilities Act for what qualifies as a disability. And our office works to provide academic accommodations and supports for those students. Our services are designed to remove the barrier that our educational environment creates as it interacts with the student's disability. And so we really want to to make our campus a welcoming place for all students, including those with disabilities. So why is this important? One of the things I run into is a lot of students who've received services in K through 12 are hesitant to register with our office. They're wanting to kind of do things on their own and really don't want to sort of own up that they have a disability. But research has shown that students with disabilities who utilize our services are far more likely to be retained from year to year than the average student. Right now, we're about 10 points higher than the average retention rate when a student registers during their before their start of their first semester. We know and we are confident that the services we provide make a difference for students by giving them that equal access to our learning environment. In short, our service helps students be successful. They do the work, we just provide some support. So reasons why students might be hesitant, and I also provide some solutions. Students might be afraid of the process. Our process is really easy. It's all done online. It is, you would fill out an application, the student would fill out an application, submit their medical documentation or their 504 or their IEP plan from high school. And then we set up a brief Zoom meeting. Usually takes about 20-30 minutes at the most, and discuss what the accommodations are. And then we talk about the other resources that we have available. And then the student is responsible for sending out any faculty notification letters by going into our RU access system, selecting those courses, selecting the accommodations that they are eligible for the courses, and then clicking a button. Our system sends out the letter. They get a copy of that, and then they can follow up with their professors, and just talk about the accommodations and how the professor is going to carry that out. Helps them the professors put a face and a name together. This process allows the student to say, I might need accommodations in this class, but this other one I don't. And that way it gives them control over who they share, that they have a disability. We never discuss at all what the student's disability is. The second thing is students might fear a lack of control. As I was saying earlier, they've got complete control over it. We can meet, they can set up, fill out an application, submit their documentation, and then they decide, what, I'm not going to need these accommodations. That's absolutely fine. They just don't have to send out a faculty notification letter. A third area is that students may not be the best self-advocate. A lot of times in K through 12, it's the parents that are advocating for the student, and the student hasn't learned how to be an advocate. We welcome parents if you want to be in on the initial session to kind of help your student be an effective advocate. That would be great. We would be glad to get input, and then we can go from there. Make sure we have things set up for the student. And it's one more thing in a sea of things to do. Yes, it's true. There's one more step in a process that students have to do as they are starting their first semester in the university, or a subsequent semester. However, I can guarantee that the services we provide are well worth the time for students, and will assist them in being successful. So how to support your student? Number one, help them become an effective self-advocate. I know a lot of times, you want your student to be, to speak up a little more, but it's important to help them do that, and not necessarily speak up for them, but help model for them an effective self-advocate. Help them understand and explain their disability. Most students that I deal with do understand their disability and can explain it quite well. Occasionally, I'll run into a student who says, well, I have trouble learning, and they don't know what their specific disability is. And I'll review the documentation with them and try to help them understand the ins and outs of their disability. And so having assistance in that would be important. And then finally, help them develop self-compassion about themselves and their disabilities. Um, Individuals who are just starting out in college, they're developing their identity. They're getting to see themselves and kind of develop, who am I? And they have to ask the question, well, who am I with this disability? Does this disability make me any less of a person? Am I any less smart because I have a learning disability or ADHD? And help them develop self-compassion around that, because we all can be successful having a disability or not. And a disability is simply, as one of my favorite quotes, simply an alternate way to live, and it's creative. So at this point in time, I'm going to see if, before we take questions, I wanted to point out this is our website. You can always just search for Google search UMKC Disability Services, and it will take you to our splash page, and you can click on New Student Services, and it'll take you to this website here. And then you can always email me or give me a call. So we're going to take some questions now, and I see from the chat, there are no questions in the chat right now.
Not
What
right at the
questions?
moment.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, Scott.
that's okay. You're fine. Do you have any questions, Kim? Is there anything that I needed to cover that that parents would and family would want to know about?
Yeah, firstly, just again, thank you so much for your time today. I feel like some of these pieces of understanding and then recognizing that your office is just quintessential to a lot of folks' experiences at UMKC, and that it's totally valid and totally
Mhm.
normal to ask for help. And to share that and to use the advocacy piece. Again, I think articulating that in such a really succinct way like you did was awesome. So thank you. My question is that if a student's uh, can a student request services from your office at any time in the semester? Does it need to be at the beginning? Whether it's they're a new student just coming in first semester, first time college student, or they're in week number 7 and they're realizing, hey, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, maybe still can, dot, dot, dot. Can you talk about a few of those different types of processes for requesting accommodations?
Absolutely. While it's best to do it as early as possible, you can request accommodations at any point in time in the semester, any point in time in your academic career. It's not something that you just can only do at the beginning. And I would encourage you to do that. While we can't do anything retroactively, we can't accommodate things retroactively, we can work from that point forward to make sure that you have the access you need to our educational environment. And again, I said the process was easy. If you have your documentation and you filled out your application today, uploaded your documentation, I could get you in within 2 or 3 days typically. So yeah, it's something that we're here to help you and to make sure that you're successful.
Thank you, Scott. How else can a parent support or a family member support a student if they do feel like there's a stigma, or they, are a little nervous to
Right. Right.
submit documentation or to utilize your services? How can we always kind of joke with our families, they're kind of, we encourage them to be the nudgers, if you will, like
Mhm.
we kind of
Mhm.
nudge them, but we can't necessarily tell mom, dad, family member to like just do it for your student, because that's not
Right,
really that way that
right,
works. So how
right.
can the nudging, encouraging piece happen?
Well, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to do a internet search. Google, uh, stigma around disabilities, whatever that disability is, and read and become familiar with kind of what's going on. And there's always ways of helping your student address that stigma, helping them understand, and maybe even kind of helping you understand how to model a stigma-free household. Some of the ideas around that would be, don't treat them different because they have a disability. Don't look at their disability as though it's a moral failing. That often happens with individuals who are maybe struggling with disability, or excuse me, with depression or anxiety. We can sometimes kind of go, well, just suck it up, get it together. And we have to start out by taking and understanding that the condition is real, and that it is a challenging condition. And so modeling the respect for the student with the disability, and being supportive of them in that, making sure that you're not sort of facilitating a stigma, helping them get the language that they need to kind of speak about their disability is not a shortcoming, but just, a difference. And I think that things like that will go a long way, helping your student understand what their disability is and who they are, and pointing out their strengths. And the other thing is, if a student is struggling in school academically, just point out that University of Missouri Kansas City is not in the business of letting students into the university who they don't think will succeed. So you've got an entire staff of folks already behind you who believes that you'll succeed. And so remember that.
I love that last piece, Scott, because I tell families, like, literally my job and my passion in life is
Mhm.
to help our students be the best they can, and help, we have so many different staff members and faculty, and even our fellow students. We establish that culture of care, so that whether it's student disability services or Office of Student Involvement or rec or advising, we're all collectively in this together. And you are so right. Again, we bring students in, and
Yeah.
we do our best to support them and recognize that they
Mm.
have been excelling in different ways prior to being here, and we
Okay.
want to continue that. Speaking of prior to here, Scott, you mentioned some different acronyms and some different numbers at the beginning of the session. Can you just break those down a bit more? I think you mentioned some different form
Oh, yeah.
numbers or plans for
Right.
folks who may either A, not have utilized those services, or B, maybe are there certain kinds of forms or things that can
Yeah.
transition easily, and just breaking that down, because maybe there's a family member or a significant
Right.
other or partner who wasn't involved in those processes, but could again kind of nudge and say, could you, hey, you had this IEP, and what is that? And let's
Mhm.
talk about that.
Well, in K through 12, students with disabilities are served by what is called special education. And they develop one of two plans. And the plans are kind of based upon, they come out of different laws, but the 504 plan is just referencing Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it spells out what the high school, or what K through 12, the public school or private school, but K through 12 will do in terms of support systems for the student with a disability. So that's called a 504 plan. The IEP is an individual education plan, and that comes out of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA. And it also is a plan that's designed these are the support services that the K through 12 schools are going to provide for that student to help them be successful. So either of those will be something to be aware of, and the paperwork on that would be helpful for us to help document the disability.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does your office help, and or do you have any recommendations for somebody who may not have formal documentation, but recognizes that they may have an undiagnosed disability or need to get that documentation?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. While our office doesn't do the evaluation, nor are we able to pay for it, we do have a number of resources. Our counseling center can do evaluations around if a student's dealing with anxiety or depression. Our student health can also address that. Student health or the student's primary care physician can address medical issues, such as somebody dealing with migraines or sickle cell anemia or another chronic condition that would qualify as a disability. For students with ADHD, they can typically go to their primary care physician and get evaluated for that. If they want something a little more in depth, or if an individual thinks they have a learning disability, we have on our campus the Community Counseling and Assessment Service. It's located over at our School of Education, and it is available for students to go seek an evaluation there. They do charge for their services, but it's set up to be fairly economical compared to what you would get in a private world. And I think those costs are typically, I'm thinking around $400 or $500 for an evaluation for, say, a learning disability, or if you wanted to go that route for ADHD. It might be a little bit more or less. Those were older numbers, but there are services available that can help you, and we will be happy to direct you in that, to those services, to those resources.
Awesome. And I'm putting, as you're talking, I'm looking up those links and putting them on
Excellent.
the Facebook live stream, so folks can circle back to those when they're watching
Wonderful.
this and see those and or reply if there's any questions. So for folks maybe who are watching this on demand or watching it later on or kind of in and out, you can always reply, and myself or one of our other moderators can get back to you.
All right.
Yeah, these are all really great resources.
And I would add that our counseling center and our student health and disability services are all located in the same area. We are located in the student services building across the street from the administrative UMKC Administrative Center. We're on the backside of Whole Foods. That kind of helps folks know exactly where we're at, but there's a student services suite up on the second floor. And so both counseling, health, and all three are here. Disability services are in this location.
Yeah, it's a beautiful location.
It is.
And it's so nice, grab a snack at Whole Foods. um, and just right on campus there.
Absolutely.
Scott, what else do you want to share today that maybe is coming up for you, or any kind of last thoughts as we start to conclude our time together?
I want parents to know, family to know that we're here for their student. If the parent wanted to reach out and say, hey, my student doesn't want to register with you, but I've got a question, or they think that this will happen. Can you, answer any questions? Feel free to reach out. I understand that there's sometimes that students are embarrassed by their disability. And while we have to work with the student in order to be able to provide accommodations, hearing from a parent what their concerns are, what the issues are, and working with parents or family to get that student to come in, or at least to give them the information that they need, so that they can make a good decision about our services. Um, so feel free to reach out anytime. Email is the best way to get in touch with me. I can respond much quicker to that. But if it's a more complex question, feel free to give me a call.
Awesome, thank you. And you can see Scott's information is on the slide that we're sharing. So his email, words, LAURENTR at umkc.edu or 816-235-5696. But I'm also a fan sometimes of email because it can
Yeah.
be easier to share as much as possible and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, Scott, thank you so much for being
Welcome.
here today and sharing information to our parents, families, and supporters. As a reminder, folks, we offer these family talks a few different times during the semester, as well as during the summer. They are relatively new, but we found them to be very helpful in creating content. And again, just allowing folks, whether they're maybe driving home from work or, browsing Facebook or doing other things, they can listen and learn and then follow up again with caring, supportive, amazing colleagues like Scott and folks who care deeply about your students and about you and the partnership we have with you and caring for your students. With that, I am going to stop our recording and then also just allow for any other questions in the Facebook, but it does not look like it at the moment, which is totally fine. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today.
Thank you.